Pippi Longstocking is a red-haired, freckled, 9-year-old girl who, like Peter Pan, does not want to grow up. She's the daughter of a buccaneer captain, and her best friends are a horse, a monkey, and the 2 children living next door in a small Swedish village where she lives.
La la la! Hej du lilla gubben, nu ska du tvärt på stubben. Bli riktigt fin och ryktad, för det vill jag du ska vara. Sinkadus i planeten, lite smäck i pannkakssmeten. Sprutti-kolli-kolli-fejset, oj oj vad det är bra. Här var det tjicka-tjocka-lajbang, tjolahopp, tjolahej, tjolahoppsan sa. Här var det tjicka-tjocka-lajbang, och här är du och jag.
Pippi is the daughter of a South Seas seafarer, Ephraim Longstocking, captain of a sailing ship who bought Pippi her house to give his daughter a more stable home life than that on board the ship. Her father was believed lost at sea, but Pippi insisted that her father was still alive, had rescued himself to an island, and had been made king of the natives. She believed her father would one day come to look for her. As it turned out, Captain Longstocking had been washed ashore upon a South Sea island where he was made the, quote, fat white chief by its native people. Her dad did eventually return to Sweden to bring Pippi to his new home in the South Seas, but Pippi found herself attached to her new friends, Tommy and Annika, and decided to stay where she was in Sweden, but only after she was confirmed as the, quote, fat white chief's daughter, Princess Pippilota. In the Swedish original, Pippi is described as a neger prinsessa, and her father as neger kung, meaning Negro princess and Negro king, respectively. Pippi's father was a buccaneer, a kind of privateer or free sailor, peculiar to the Caribbean Sea during the 17th and 18th centuries. Originally, the term applied to seafaring hunters, where meat was caught and smoked to make jerky, and they sold that to what were essentially pirates. Most, if not all, of these transatlantic pirates were Jews, or Marranos, which were crypto-Jews who were forced to convert and or were expelled from Spain and other parts of Europe in 1492. To understand how these Jews got into Europe in the first place, one needs to take a closer look at ancient Egypt, specifically the 15th and 16th dynasty, known as the Hyksos, which means rulers of foreign countries, who were Asiatics, according to Manetho, and were driven out around 1500 BC. The same way that the original U.S. colonies were divided into 13, 12 states, and Washington, D.C., the people known as Israelites divided themselves up into tribes, the most famous being the tribe of Judah, from where we get the term Jew from. That said, after Cyrus the Great attacked Babylon and freed the Jewish captives, allowing them to return to Palestine, or modern Israel, many of the other tribes also took the name of Jew, even though they were from other tribes, such as the tribe of Dan. At the time of the Exodus, some of the Danites, according to the Jewish Encyclopedia, decided to stay in their ships and started to name places that they colonized with the word Dan, such as Sardinia. They were feared as pirates, even then, distinguished by their horned helmets, round shields, and large swords.
At the time of about Moses, when he led the children out of Israel with the kingdom of Egypt left in shambles, some chose not to follow Moses into the land of Canaan. About 1500 BC, a last flowering of megalithic culture occurred. On the island of Sardinia in the Mediterranean Sea, a tower-building people, sometimes called Shardana, emerged and soon dominated Sardinia, and then invaded Corsica and the Balearics and ruled them for about 1,000 years. These were the ancient Danites. Their very name identifies them. They gave their name to their island, Sardinia, and the very name Shardana proves who they really were. I looked at the naming of the actual monarch butterfly, and this is Wikipedia. This butterfly is named after Danos. Now, who is Danos? Well, I will show you. Danos is from the tribe of Dan. It states out here in this historic book. It says Danos of the tribe of Dan landed at the city of Argos and gained control of it. Now, who was Dan in the Bible? Dan, it says here, was the fifth son of Jacob with Bilhah. He was Bilhah's first son, the founder of the Israelite tribe of Dan. In the biblical accounts, Dan's mother is described as Rachel's handmaid. And I want you to look, of course, at the as above, so below symbology here, with the two inverted pyramids. And of course, this is the Star of David. But inside this mark, you also see the serpent. I found a very interesting article here about the tribe of Dan and the serpent seed. And it says here, the tribe of Dan is one of the 12 tribes of Israel. They are named after their ancestor Dan, who was one of the sons of Jacob of Israel. Dan means to judge, govern, or rule. The tribe of Dan, one of their main symbols, because they were seen as judges. They have the serpent. And they also have the scales.
Many hundreds of years before the birth of Christ, about the time of the greatness of Solomon, king of Israel, who reigned from 1015 to 975 BC, the power, the wealth, and the influence of Phoenicia as a maritime nation was immense, and had been so throughout prior centuries. From their command of the sea, the Phoenicians, stemming from among the Israelites, became the greatest seafarers of the ancient world. From Tyre and Sidon they spread westward to colonize and to trade. On the map, the colonies are shaded green, mainly North Africa and southern Spain, and the trade routes are marked by red dots, hugging the North African coast and the western seaboard of Spain. The commerce of Tyre reached throughout the world. Merchants sailed the high seas far and wide and built a vast empire. This drawing is of a relief found in the palace of Sennacherib in Nineveh, depicting a Phoenician fleet of warships protecting merchant ships in 714 BC. Long-range, deep-sea-going craft like this would be at sea for 12 months or more about the year 600 BC. They circumnavigated Africa and adventured where none had ever gone before. From the earliest times, the ships of Israel sailed with the ships of Tyre, with the result that all, regardless of nationality, even the Greeks, became known as Phoenicians. These were people by no means as mysterious as they have been regarded. Indeed, they may well be placed among the great builders of our world. Today, following in the footsteps of other historicists, there are many who uphold and testify to the contention that a vast trade relationship existed between Phoenicia and Cornwall. Diodorus Siculus, who lived in the time of Augustus, BC 20, described it at length and in detail. Here, in part, is how he marked out the very sea and land routes that the Phoenicians followed. He writes, "This tin metal is transported into Gaul, the merchants carrying it on horseback through the heart of Celtica to Marseille and Narbo. Posidonius, who also travelled to Britain about 80 BC, also wrote about the tin mines of Dumnonia, which is Devon, and Balerium, which is Cornwall. So now our story brings us to the shores of Balerium, the Cornish peninsula, where the Hebrew merchants bartered on the beaches for the crudely smelted ingots. Today, the county is profusely studded with the gaunt granite engine houses, the crumbling brick stacks, and the ruined calciners, the overgrown ruins of 100 years or more, the remains and debris of an industry having its roots in biblical antiquity. The fact that tin was sought after literally thousands of years ago is supported by the certainty that Cornwall, being so richly endowed in the mineral, became longest and more intensively mined than any other in Britain, in fact than in most of Europe. These roughly shaped blocks of tin were discovered in 1974 at Pras Sands, less than 20 miles from Land's End. There seems no doubt that they are from the same period. Are we not now entitled to consider these early Britons in the light of what Camden tells us in the first volume of his Britannia, published in 1806, concerning the Israelitish tribe of Asher, which stemmed from the 8th son of Jacob? He comes out boldly with the statement, and I quote, "The merchants of Asher worked the tin mines, not as slaves, but as masters and exporters." Unquote.
The aspect of the Celt is terrifying. They are very tall in stature, with rippling muscles under clear white skin. Their hair is blonde and thick and shaggy like a horse's mane. They wear brightly colored and embroidered shirts with striped and checkered cloaks fastened at the shoulders with a golden brooch.
We are told that the Hyksos were a people of mixed Semitic and Asian descent who invaded Egypt and settled in the Nile Delta around 1640 BC. They formed the 15th and 16th dynasties of Egypt and ruled a large part of the country until driven out. Anthropologically speaking, Semitic better describes a linguistic group than it does a race. And as far as Asian descent, an article published recently reveals the genetic identity of a blue-eyed people that occupied what is now modern Israel over 6,000 years ago, coming from Iran and Western Asia, where we also find massive pyramids orientated identically to the ones found in Egypt, with 4,000-year-old Aryan mummies genetically related to Egypt's blonde and red-headed pharaohs and nobility.
Well, there's that research that we're hearing today that shows half of all Western European men are somehow related to the Egyptian pharaoh King Tutankhamun. CTV's Marilla Fernandez here with more on this. Marilla, what's up with this?
It's really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
So this is coming out of Switzerland, and the researchers there have found that not only do half of Western European men have this connection, genetic profile connection, but 70% of men in Britain, which is astounding, but they all have the same genetic profile or same ancestry as King Tut from Egypt way back when. Here's what's really shocking about this. Less than 1% of modern-day Egyptians have that same connection.
Isn't that interesting?
We are here at the State Historical Center, and we're going to show you a few things here in the museum. Almost a 2-ton nugget of float copper pushed up by glacial ice. Look at the patina on that. This thing is gorgeous, but this is a huge nugget of copper.
They polished it.
They may have some, and then people's hands and everything touching it over the years, I'm sure, has polished it a bunch too. That is just sick, man. And here we have a bit more of Michigan metals. That ore right there contains a little bit of gold and silver, and that may be a silver nugget right there. And then we have some nice copper nuggets. Big, thick one right there in the back. That one looks like a horn, almost. It's like quartz crystal. And I'm not sure about that one. It looks like a little bowl or a cup almost. It's pretty unique. All part of Michigan history and copper. And then also, I guess they pulled out some iron as well. That one, I don't know how well you'll pick it up, but it has the crystal formation coming out here on the bottom left. And then that big old nugget right there. But I love this one because it's got all the, see if you can see some of the sparkle. All of the crystal showing as well.
Men en storm kan du höra någon som ropar hej och ifrån havets djup det kommer och det låter så.
The Phoenicians would mix the tin from places around the UK with copper from places as far away as Michigan to create bronze. a superior metal which the Hyksos pharaohs introduced to Egypt, as well as the horse and chariot and other domesticated animals. These Aryans are credited with agriculture spreading out from Anatolia during the Holocene, the period we are now in following the Ice Age, and they also domesticated many animals which made agricultural civilization possible, like the oxen and horses, and introduced those animals to places like Egypt and Africa as well, not to mention India, but that will be another video. An interesting biological genetic note about these people is that they're the only demographic in the world, these Caucasians, that are not lactose intolerant as an adult. By default, most mammals and humans enjoy their mother's milk as an infant, but as an adult cannot properly digest the lactose. But these people, after millennia of raising cows and drinking milk, can drink milk as an adult with no problem, and the people of Northern Europe are also of this genetic profile and are rarely lactose intolerant. Another link indicating a connection between the people of the Mediterranean and the people of Northern Europe. My name is Robert Sepehr. I'm an anthropologist, producer, and author. My books are available on Amazon. Thank you for your continued support of Atlantean Gardens. There should be a link in the description to a Patreon page. I appreciate the supportive comments, and since I'm censored on social media, kindly share this video if you've enjoyed it. Have a great weekend, stay safe, and I will see you soon.